So the sharing of information is key. And the plug right now for you guys is it starts here. It starts in this room. It starts with you having real intelligence, real information, that when somebody says something, you can go, bull, and be able to have the facts to argue it, okay? So let's talk a little bit about this. So what was the purpose of the document to go as we move forward? Very simply, we wanted to gather facts objectively. Now, coming from a law enforcement perspective, oh, you're going to be slanted in your approach. We recognized that was going to be a perception. So the goal was look at data, factual data from a valid source, gather it objectively, and let the data speak for itself. What we wanted to do was provide a resource that didn't exist. When November 2000 came around and our first medical marijuana model got passed to our Constitution, nobody really did much about it. And then in November of 12, when the recreational model got passed, there was really no discernible facts to go back to folks and say, here's the real story behind this. Here's the real information. Just nobody had put it together. It was out there, but nobody had put it together in one place. It's kind of a scary thought. An informed voter going to the poll with facts. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. So this did not exist prior to that. So when we released the first one, they were automatically clamoring for more and more and more and more. And by the time we get done tonight, you'll have the web address that you can go, you can download these. These are completely shareable. In fact, I would encourage you to share it. Okay? Be the apostle here and carry the word forward. All right? So when we talk about this, we have to understand there's two sides to every argument, right? There's going to be a pro side that says we need to legalize this. There's going to be the prohibitionist side that's going to say we don't need to argue the point and don't need to legalize it. Understand this. Do not think that the pro-marijuana side is a bunch of, quote, hippies. Don't think it's a bunch of dope smokers, okay? That's not the case. They're very smart. They're very well informed. They're very motivated. And they're very well funded. That makes for a worthy opponent in the fight, okay? So the pro side is going to come out and say these certain things. We know what they're going to say. By the same token, we know what the other side is going to say too. Now, when we look at a couple of points where we talk about fewer arrests for possession and sale, quite frankly, the majority of the arrests for possession and sales, guys, are summonses. Most of them aren't even arrestable offenses anymore, okay? We find that, free up law enforcement resources. Since we passed these things in Colorado, law enforcement and state agencies have actually had to spool up resources that they never had to fund before. So it's actually costing us money. So you can see these as we go down through the list, and there's their own arguments behind it. But the bottom line being is if you understand what is, you understand what isn't. Okay? If you know what the truth is, you know what's a lie. So part of my mission here with you guys tonight is this. It's one thing to sit and go over stats. It's another thing to go over how things happen and why they happen. And the importance behind that is that if you recognize the nose of the camel come up under the tent, then you recognize you don't want him in the tent with you, okay? So here's how we got to this point in the great state of Colorado. Truly now the mile-high state. We have to flash backwards. Yeah, did you ever think?
Exactly.
I gotta be, sidebar, I never thought in now 36 years of being a cop, this was the legacy I was leading for the next generation of centurions coming up behind me. Incredible. Okay, so let's take a look at this. November 2000. This was our version of compassionate care. This was the medical marijuana model. And it was designed to treat critical, serious, debilitating medical conditions. Cancer, glaucoma, the after effects of chemo. I just lost my stepdad a couple years ago to cancer. Didn't go in for his colonoscopies, a mass grew, metastasized to his liver, into his stomach. This was a great guy. Wouldn't have said crap if he had a mouth full of it. The last 8 weeks of his life, nothing from here down worked. Everything was coming up. So the guy that would never say crap, that's how he died, with a mouth full of it, okay? If I thought this would have worked, I would have locked him in a broom closet with the Grateful Dead or something, just if it was going to have any value to it. But let's look at the model here. So the debilitating medical conditions allows for a person, a quote patient, to have 2 ounces of weed, 6 plants for personal usage. By a show of hands, 2 ounces of weed. Who thinks that's a lot of dope? Not a single hand. 6 plants. Who thinks that's a lot of dope? 1 hand, 2 hands. Okay. We'll come back to that. Hold that thought. I did not know how many males, 18 to 25, we had in the Denver metro area suffering from critical, debilitating medical conditions. I see them on the trails. I'm riding my bikes. I see them on the skateboards. I see them hotboxing in the cars when my wife and I go to the movie theaters. And you start looking at some of the conditions. Chronic pain, unspecified region. You know, doc, I don't know what the problem is. I'm having a lucid thought. I can hold a conversation, has a beginning, a middle, and end. They all tie together. I have ambition. I don't know what the problem is. Oh, you need weed. You know, let's sign you up and let's get you high. Okay? When we look at this model, understand the camel, when we look at this model, if it works once, it's going to work again. So in 2000, this passes, it's on the books, and away we go. Now, this was the magic card everybody wanted. This was the magic medical marijuana card. If you had this in your possession, pursuant to the amendment to the state constitution, you could possess marijuana and grow it. Now, let's talk about the camel again. When a state passes a law through the legislatures, who can change that law? Don't have to phrase it in the form of a question. Okay? The legislatures, right? If it's an amendment to a state constitution, who has to change it? Vote of the people. Oh. So if we can get it attached to the state constitution to allow for these things, how hard is it to undo the knot? Pretty hard. Now think about what happened. We're talking about 2000. People are clamoring for these cards to the point where in 8 years we had less than 6,000 cards out there. But the byproduct of this, the amendment to that constitution, had some pretty large loopholes in it. You can't have that weed without that little red card. But it did not address the process. Well, what about if you have your application in the process of it? It said you can only have 6 plants. Well, I go to Dr. Feelgood or whoever he happens to be, and it's like, you know, I need weed, doc, because I have a serious headache every morning after I get drunk the night before. Well, okay, you need weed. State says you can have 6 plants. No, no, no. I'm sure that's a bad headache. Let's make that 106 plants. So the doctors were overriding this stuff. Cops were bumping up against people on the street. They'd have a little bit of weed in the car. All of a sudden, well, I got a marijuana card. Well, let me see it. Well, the paperwork's in process. Well, okay, can I arrest you now or can I not arrest you? Do you get a ticket? Do you not get a ticket? You're transporting 2 pounds of weed. Well, I'm a caregiver. I'm taking it to my patients. Well, we need to verify the patient information. When we try to verify the patient information, what word do we get thrown back at us? HIPAA. It was like roadblocks everywhere we were going as cops. The byproduct of this was this. Cops no longer wanted to enforce marijuana laws. Prosecutors no wanted to deal with marijuana cases. Nobody wanted to touch this because there was so much ambiguity associated to the law. Okay? Remember 6,000. We're going to come back to that in a second. All right. 2009. This is in red for a reason. When we look at data throughout the course of the evening, I want you to look for 2009 and after and look at the impact. This first memo that we're going to talk about was the Ogden memo. This was direction from the Department of Justice down to federal prosecutors saying, yes, weed is bad. Yes, weed is scourge. Yes, it's highly profitable for the cartels and the drug trafficking organizations. It should be prosecuted. Then you turn the page and it says, but if the person you're investigating is in obvious compliance with state laws, then pretty much leave them alone. They didn't want to have the impression that, you know, Big Brother was going after my stepdad. And it wasn't about going after people with cancer, okay? That was not the intent behind this. We're talking about when we do investigations on these things, we look for the traffickers, we look for the large-scale dealers, okay? They didn't want this perception being out there. And I can understand the point behind it, but for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction, right? So here's the cause and effect of this Ogden memo. After that sucker came out, the floodgates in Colorado opened up. Dispensaries increased, applications for that little red card increased. By the end of 2009, there was 38,000 plus new applications in. Card holders increased by tenfold, okay? Dispensaries were popping up left, right, left, right, left, right. You drive down the street and all you see are green neon crosses everywhere that you're going, okay? Let's jump to now November of 12. This is our recreational model. Now the thing I liked about this one, this was the first time that Toto went down, grabbed the curtain, and pulled the curtain back and you could see the wizard. Why do we want this passed? We want to smoke it and get high. Thank you. That's the first good thing I've heard you say in terms of why and the intent and purpose behind it. Okay? So, This model, notice how close it is to the medicinal model. Instead of 2 ounces, you get 1. You still get 6 plants. You don't have to have a caregiver here. And it did open up the opportunity for some commercial enterprises associated to the marijuana or hemp industry. Okay? By a show of hands. Not many people like the concept of 2 ounces being a lot of dope. What do you think about 1 ounce? Is 1 ounce a lot of dope? Show of hands. Same reaction. And I expected that. That's good. So, our card holders in 14 kind of stabilized out at about 113,000 folks. What we'll notice that there were certain facilities that popped up. We had recreational, we had medicinal. Do a little bit of math there. Take a look at the 2 bottom areas. That's our medical dispensaries and our recreational marijuana shops, and compare them to the ubiquitous Starbucks and McDonald's. We've got new numbers coming in. Guess what? We got more again as we move into 15. So the perception is a reality. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of it out there. And while we're talking about perception, let's talk about this. Let's talk about social, let's just call it social numbing. We passed this in November of 2000. It's now 2015. There's an entire generation of our kids that are growing up with this being just a white static noise in the background. Well, it's marijuana. Well, it's just a little bit of weed. It's medicine. What happens in 3 years? What does this age group get to do in 3 years? That's critical. Vote. Oh, they're already using it. No, they're ahead of us on that one. We're doing good. Yeah, they get to vote. So the perception being, hey, you know, it's always been around. Why should we worry about it? That's a little scary for us. In 2013, the Department of Justice once again comes out with another memo. This is the Cole memo. These are the 8 bright, shining points that the federal authorities need to take a look at if they're going to direct investigative resources toward. So we've got making sure it doesn't get to minors, make sure it doesn't get to criminal enterprises. Don't let it get out of the state. If it's legal in the state, it needs to stay in the state. Don't use marijuana activity as a pretext. Violence and guns, drug driving and other public adverse things, use and growth in public lands. There's 8. As we go through this data today and you hear what Ron's got to say, I'm telling you right now, we're already violating most of these because there's no mechanism to trap it. And then once we do trap the data, what do we do with it? Okay? This is a lot like buying a used car. Anybody buy a used car in here lately? You did? What kind of car did you get?
Ford Taurus.
Ford Taurus. Fine piece of machinery. How old was the car?
A year.
Okay. When you saw the car, did you test drive it?
Yes.
Would you have bought it without test driving it? Did you have it inspected mechanically?
Yes.
Okay. Would you have bought it without having it inspected?
Maybe.
Maybe. If I came to you, what's your first name?
Ann.
I said, Ann, welcome to Honest Quig's, home of used cars. Okay? This is a face you can trust, right? You like the car? I think you look great in the car. This is a great fit for you. I know you want to have it tested. I know you want to test drive and have it inspected. Tell you what, you sign the paperwork, you buy the car, give me the money. And then you can test drive it. If there's a problem, we'll figure out a process afterwards to make it work. Would you have made the deal? Well, okay, so we'll forget about the test drive. If you want to inspect it, make sure it's mechanically sound. Give me the money for the car now, and then down the road we'll figure out if something's broken, how to fix it if we can. Would you buy the car?
No.
What did we do in Colorado? We bought a used car.
Yeah.
All these great ideas coming up about how we can, get the product out there, how it's going to benefit society. But there was no places, there was no methods, no systems in place to track the information. That was one of the biggest things that we ran into. And the more you look at the issue and turn over more stones, it's like cutting the head off the hydra. You cut one head off and 2 heads grow in its place. It has become a conundrum for us to deal with as a government. Let's do a little math. How many plants do we get in Colorado? 6. Okay, you guys are awake and working. So, you take a plant, you let it grow. You're going to get about 3 growth cycles a year out of a plant. So figure 3 growth cycles times 6 plants, 18 plants a year. By a show of hands, is 18 plants a lot of plants in the course of a year? Now I see the heads going, oh, yeah, damn right it is. All right, so let's consider this. When Amendment 64 passed, 54% of our voting population put the bong down long enough to go to the polls and say, dude, yes. 54% is roughly 1.3 million people in my state. You take that time their 18 plants, because of course, nobody's going to grow more than what they're allowed, right? Nobody speeds, okay? Nobody violates the law. Heck, we can't even get people to sign the back of their registration the right color of ink. How are we going to get them to comply with this one? So now all of a sudden, we've got 23.4 million plants, in theory, if that's only the people growing it, in the state. Is this a lot of weed? It's just under 12 tons of weed. Even my fraternity couldn't go through that in college in a year. Many of them tried, mind you. Many of them tried. So let's go back to the individual now. We're going to roll a joint. Now, I don't believe in the bong. I don't believe in waxing or vapor pens. I'm a traditionalist. So we're going to go down to 7-Eleven, and we're going to get our little zigzag papers. And we only need about a half a gram of weed to put in there. Why a half a gram instead of those great big old fatties like we used to see, people used to see in college? Okay? Because of the potency level of the weed that we're growing. My first undercover drug buy was a pound of Mexican commercial grade weed. Average on a good day, maybe 7% in potency, was $400. Okay? Now we've got strains of marijuana that are in the mid-30s for potency level. And that's not even before you extract it into a hash product. So all we need is about a half a gram. That's a polite little joint. So we'll get our zigzags out. We'll put our little weed in there. We'll roll it up. I saw this once in a TV show. And we'll fire it up. Is one joint a lot to worry about? In the grand scheme of things, no, not really. Okay? But do we stop at one joint? Oh, no. Because we know that at an ounce, we get 28 grams in an ounce, which means we get about 56 joints, if we very carefully weigh them out, per ounce. 56 joints. Who thinks that's a lot of weed? What's the difference between that and the 1 ounce that I had in my bag just a few minutes ago? We'll talk later. She goes, I've never smoked it. So you're an edible person. Okay, I get it. So we got 56 joints in an ounce. Do we stop here? No. No. How many ounces in a pound? 16 ounces in a pound. So now we got almost 900 joints out of 1 pound. Back up here on top. 1 pound, 1 plant, 18 pounds, 18 plants. By the end of the year, you've got about 16,000 joints to get through. Perspective check. That's 44 joints a day. That's about 1 every 2 hours, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, including your birthday, Christmas, and Hanukkah. Okay? This does not leave you time to go to 7-Eleven or Taco Bell at 3 o'clock in the morning for Nachos Bel Grande when you got the munchies. You barely have time to watch cable TV this long. You don't even get a chance to take a nap. This is a full-time job. I'm asking, does this start to seem like it's a lot of weed? Yes. For a reason, it is. So we start asking the question, all right, so if we start looking at, and again, this is tongue-in-cheek, but it serves the point. It starts to bring the question up. When we look at this much weed being generated in our state, is it staying in our state? Is it staying in compliance to law, compliance to regulation, compliance to these highly regulated industries that we have? And the answer is no, it's not. And it hasn't been since we started this madness. If you understand the process, you recognize the camel. So here's the, we call this crap a clue in police work, when you see the same things happen over and over again. So here's a clue for you. These are the states that initially decriminalized. What followed decriminalization was a push to medicinal. So here's the states that initially stand up for medical, okay? Of course, somebody had to be first, so we legalized it first by virtue of one time zone. Otherwise, our friends back up in Washington would have beat us. Just followed by Oregon, Alaska, and the District of Columbia. This one makes sense on the far east coast. I mean, the air's already thin there. Why not add to the problem, right? So, oh, by the way, state of Oregon, you know what their possession limit is? A half a pound. Kind of makes our outs look pretty sick, doesn't it? Okay, so these are our legal states. Now, these are the states that right now are being targeted for legalization. There's some step for legalization afoot. These are the states being targeted for medicinal models. Now, take a look at this map for a second. Let me get out of your way, darling. Take a look at this map and let it burn in your head. I'm going to tell you a little quick story. It used to be, the reason Rocky Mountain HIDA is in existence is that as you come north out of El Paso Juarez, I-25, Coming out of the South LA basin, you got I-15 through Nevada, intersects with I-70. We got I-70, we got I-80, I-25, I-76. And as we continue north, we have I-90, 94, okay, major drug trafficking corridors. Used to be all of our weed came from Mexico. All the really good weed used to come out of Central Valley in California, right about where that little caduceus is at. So, here about 4 years ago, we started hearing that Colorado was becoming a source state for marijuana in the mid-Atlantic states. So we looked into this. We looked into the information. We used closed cases that have already been adjudicated, so they're public record. Nothing's going to compromise the case. And we published a report that says, yeah, we are losing a lot of weed out of our state. Yeah, a lot of people are picking it up elsewhere. Yep, it's impacting other states. Now the pro side came back to us and said, hey, you guys are cherry picking with your stats, and are these all the cases you could come up with? No, the only ones that we could report because they were adjudicated. They kind of wrote us like the penny pony in front of Kmart for the better part of 2 weeks on this one. The sad thing was, yeah, it showed that we were becoming a source state for all of this to the east. Now, if you take nothing from this, listen carefully. Dope is not a black thing. Dope is not a white thing. Dope is not a brown thing. What color is dope about? Green. It's about money. It's about money. Somebody can come into Colorado, buy a pound of weed. Remember what I said I paid for my first pound of weed? You guys remember? 400 bucks. You can buy a pound of weed ranging from $1,200 to $2,000 a pound. The further east you take that, it doubles. East again, it triples. Further east again, quadruples, and sometimes by 5-fold it'll increase. That's why you see a heavy proliferation here. Remember this map. We're going to come back to this little sucker here again in just a few minutes. How many of you guys look at stats on a regular basis? Just out of curiosity. Oh, a lot of you. Okay. When Ron introduced me, and I'm really not as good as that paper says I am. In addition to dope work, one of the most rewarding jobs I had was I did traffic enforcement. I did DUI enforcement, vehicular homicide cases. Did that for 4 years. And it was very proactive, and I felt good about the nearly 2,300 people I arrested in that time for DUI. I felt bad about all the people I had to scrape up off the pavement. The sad thing was the last year I was in traffic, God, everything I touched died. It was a bad year. God just had his finger pointed and said, yeah, today, this is your year. The last two were a couple of kids, and that fried my noodle. I was done. I was done. The point I offer, and I know I see one badge in the back. Who else have I got in here, cops? How long have you been on the job? How long? 8? How long? 17. How many death notifications have you done? 3? Do you enjoy them? No. No, I remember our first fatal. I can see her, I can tell you what the day was like, and her name was Della. And Della, it was just an accident. It was just a piece of paper I needed to deal with that day. Della didn't become a real person until I went with our coroner to go deliver the death notification. He goes, come on, I need you to go with me. So, no, hey, I don't do that. Hey, I'm a cop. Plus, I didn't want to. Didn't have to want to. Della stayed in my noodle for a long time. She's still there. Still dream about her. When we look at stats, understand what we're really looking at. When we talk a deviation from a mean, when we talk a beta change of X, a change of Y, we're not talking about numbers, guys. We're talking about people. Somebody's mom, dad, sister, brother, son, daughter. They're people. It's easy to look at data and be very sterile about it. It's easy to complain about that late report that you're taking and forget that there's actually a person who's a victim behind something associated to that report. It's easy to forget the human factor. You can't do that. We can't allow that to happen. That desensitizing, we have to fight to keep that from happening. Okay? Especially kids. Especially kids. They're counting on us to help them make the right decisions, especially when it comes to this madness. So the first thing that people want to talk about is the accident side of this thing. What's going on with accidents? What's going on with fatals? I've actually got some good news for us. In the state of Colorado, as is nationally, accident rates are down. Fatal accident rates are going down. I mean, that's good stuff. That really is. We got safer cars, safer roadways. We're coming out of a recession at $3.25 a gallon. Nobody really wanted to drive a whole lot. Couldn't afford to drive a whole lot. So for a wide variety of reasons, those numbers are down. We're making a great stride forward on the drive drunk, go to jail type of stuff. My daughter, I've got 2 daughters, Lucifer and Beelzebub. Anybody got teenage daughters in here? Aren't those great days? You wonder why tigers eat their young? Lucifer's 27 and married now. Beelzebub's 24. They've actually turned into humans. And by the grace of God, I'm blessed. They're nice people. I like them. So, and why wouldn't you? Because they're kids. They get it better than we ever did. Without a show of hands, rhetorically, because we can't afford the attorneys, how many times have any one of us made the choice to take those keys, put them in the ignition after being at the party, after being at a club, knowing we had no business turning that ignition? Yeah, everyone's kind of got that, maybe once or twice. Yeah, I mean, we've all made really stupid decisions. When Lucifer and her husband go down to Denver to go to a club or go to a party or something, they take a cab. They don't even introduce the concept of a car. And I said, why do you guys do that? She goes, oh, Dad, DUI. And they go, you of all people. I said, I'm just asking. These are the same kids when I asked them, they actually made it through college in 4 years. During the recession, that was fun. That's why I'm still working. And I asked them, I said, okay, statute of limitations has expired as being a parent-child relationship. While you were in college, how much dope did you smoke? Lucifer goes, none. What about you? She goes, none. I said, come on. Come on, talk to me truth. Who's your buddy? Tell me the truth. None. I said, why didn't you? Were you ever at the parties and it was being passed around? She goes, oh yeah. Yeah, you sit around, someone hands you a joke, oh, okay, you just hand it to the next person. Why didn't you take a hit off of that? The response, we saw how hard you worked fighting this crap and knew it'd break your heart. Love my kids. So they did not want to enter this club. And I'm grateful that they had that common sense. Here's the downside now. When we look at our fatalities from 2007 through 2012, overall, we're down 15%, but when we look at the fatalities where we have a positive test result for cannabis, THC specifically, look at our numbers. In 2007, we were at 7%, over doubled by 2012. What happened in there? It's that social norming. It's around. It's just around. People are going to start using it. When we look at the raw numbers here, in 2006 we had 37 fatals involving operators testing positive for marijuana. 2012 that's actually 78. Is 78 a lot of people? How many people have we got in here? About 150. Okay, half of this room is dead. This side of the room's dead. Is that a big deal to you guys? Yeah, it's a big deal because that's your friend. That's someone that you're working with, someone you have a common interest with. It's a big deal, especially if you're sitting on this side of the room. Okay, it has an impact. Again, don't forget about the human factor, the stats here. When we look at it, when we break it down by percentages of overall accidents, back in 2006, slightly less than 7% of our accidents. By 2012, 16.5% of our accidents were tied back to this stuff. Are we saying marijuana caused the accident? No. Are we saying it's a contributing factor when you look at the toxicology results and see that's involved? Yeah, it's something you have to look at. Specifically, what was our magic year? Look at 2009. But if they're in obvious compliance with state law, and it goes up, and it goes up. Everyone has a position on smoking and driving, drugged driving. Our folks over at Normal basically say, look, if you've been smoking, don't drive. I mean, that's good advice. Columbia University, almost 3 times more likely to have an accident after smoking and driving. NHTSA, it's an intoxicant. Stay away from it. Here's our teenage cruise. Sad. Good studies that came out on this. They went to high schools across the country and asked the question, have you ever driven or operated a motor vehicle after drinking or smoking dope? 25% of the kids said, yeah, I did. I thought, all right, good for them. I'm guessing maybe the numbers would be a little higher. But of the 25% that said, yes, I have, 75% of them said, no, it had no impact on my ability to safely operate a motor vehicle in any fashion. That's scary. Bless you, dear. That's scary. Think of the age group. At this age group, we were all immortal. the brains are still developing. That sense of mortality doesn't come until later in life. Okay? For them, this was an okay thing to do. One of the benefits that we gain out of this, I'm going to share a little gap analysis with you. We started looking at our data. And the data we looked at, we got from the Colorado Department of Transportation. Great partners with them, and great partners with our friends at the National Highway Transportation and Safety Administration. One of the things that we developed is a relationship with our local coroner's offices through the statewide agency. The reason, these are the guys, the whole keeper of the keys of the kingdom when it came to toxicology results. Because we started realizing, when we started looking at data that you pull off of NHTSA that's reported by the states, there's tests in there that maybe a test was given, but there's no result obtained, or unknown if a test was given. There's a certain coding issue that we identified that maybe prohibited marijuana or other drugs to be identified in this. And we got that relationship going. I gave this one slide to the Colorado Coroners Association during the presentation. And I asked them out loud, I said, how many of you guys get requests from the Department of Transportation for toxicology results? Every hand went up, and one old crusty boy from way back in the mountains, he goes, yeah, I get them reports. Those guys are a pain in the butt. They can get that other place. They don't need to come hassling me for that. Well, we identified actually they do, because the information goes from the coroner's office to CDOT, and sometimes it doesn't have any place in between to land. Here was the scenario I gave them, and we all complain about our jobs, but we don't understand the bigger picture, okay? It's what, 5:15 in the afternoon, 216 Baker, on a serious injury accident, possible fatal, westbound 84 at Eagle. 16 Baker goes, I'm getting off at 6, crap. I'm supposed to go to dinner with the wife, we're gonna go to a movie, life was gonna be great. No, now I gotta go down and deal with this accident. So 16 Baker goes down and gets the accident. He's not a happy camper. Gets down walks up to the driver, driver's gone, driver's dead. All right, 16 Baker, this is fatal, send me to the coroner. Coroner's at home just sitting down to a nice meal with his family, right? So coroner gets the page, he goes down, and now he's complaining. Now he's got to leave dinner. Now he's going to go down and deal with this accident. God, another fatal, another body, another death notification, another piece of paper, another statistic, part of that desensitizing process. Here's what the coroner's office didn't realize. They take their body, they take it back to the lab, they do their autopsies, they take their toxicology results, they take those tox results, they send them off to have an analysis done, and then we get back the screenings. Sometimes it comes back absolutely clear, nothing active in the system. Then we'll find caffeine, we'll find benzodiazepines, we'll find cocaine metabolites, we'll find cannabinoids, okay? All of those get reported. When they get reported, Colorado Department of Transportation, just like I'm sure your local DOT does, takes that information and puts it into what's called FARS, Fatal Accident Reporting System. That gets shoved up to NHTSA, the national crew, who, by the way, when they heard about this gap, first off, they were delighted that we found it. And then it was like, oh my God, how badly are we under-reporting things? So a lot of people turn to NHTSA for that national perspective, what's going on with fatalities. So people like us, so we start pulling their information, generate our report. What we're finding out is our reports, the things that we're doing at the grassroots levels, these are going to other circles. People are making policy decisions based on this data, on whether this is something good or something bad. You with me? Okay, these are important relationships to have. Now, because you're going to face this thing sooner or later. So understand what the gaps are up front, and this is one of them. So Ron's going to spend a little more time talking about youth usage on this, okay? But we're going to touch on a few things. One of the things we want to take a look at is what happens with the adults and the kids. So we use current usage. Current usage is defined as in with the last 30 days. In a perfect world, it would be daily. The data is just not out there on a broad basis. You can find within the last 30 days pretty relatively, okay? So it's out there. And if you're doing any research in this, when you pull our reports, everything is site sourced for you. So half your work's already done for you. All you got to go is to the website and match the tables up, okay? The downside is, even with our kids, 12 to 17 years old, we're higher than the national average. 12 to 17 years old, perspective, roughly 5th, 6th grade through sophomores in high school. That seems a little young to me. What's even sadder is we used to be 5th. Our kids in Colorado are not underachievers, folks. We worked our way up to being 4th in the nation. Part of the problem that we're running into, just so you have a sidebar on this one, and we touched on it briefly earlier, is the potency level of these strains of marijuana that we've got available now. We don't have that 3 to 7% stuff anymore. Nobody really wants that anymore. That's gone by the wayside. Now we're seeing potencies in the 30+ range. The hash oil products, we're seeing potencies in excess of 80%. That's a lot of THC in a very small commodity here. We'll touch about this on a little while as we get to the end here. This is what we're seeing in terms of, in our neck of the woods, for the marijuana concentrates, which according to law, under the Constitution for Amendment 64, is permissible to extract THC for the purpose of making concentrates and using it for edible products. What's another word for marijuana concentrate? Hash oils, which is still a violation of our state statute. Those are one of those little, oh gee, we didn't think about that. Well, surprise. Now it's something that we have to deal with. The glycerine stuff on the left-hand side, they'll call it shatter because it's very brittle. The other stuff, they call it earwax. Now, I don't know about you, but hey, why don't you come over to the house? Let's smoke some earwax. No, that's okay, I'm busy with toe jam. It just didn't make any sense. It's the waxy stuff is just that. It's very waxy. It's potent, very potent THC concentration. And unlike the bong, where you would just poke the weed down in there and fill up the water pipe and you got to release the carburetor, right, to get the air flowing. Okay. Now, what's on there is you take the crown of it off. There's a metal plate that you heat up with a butane torch so it's white hot, and you take this dab and you put it down on that hot plate and it vaporizes instantly. Now think about the administration method here. You're now taking an intoxicant into a gaseous form, inhaling it in your lungs, it's into the alveolar sacs, a couple beats of the heart, it's into the system, and now it's up in the central processing unit. It's probably one of the most effective delivery systems around. That's what makes crack so popular, because it's such an instant high. Same period, you're using the gas vapor on this thing. So the smokes that come off this stuff, off these vapors, are this really intense white smoke that unfortunately, when you sit at a stoplight at the corner of Walk and Don't Walk in Denver, two things are going to happen. Because our climate is so dry, you see people pick their nose. And in some cases, you'll see, and you'll see this white vapor that immediately dissipates. It's this stuff. Behind the wheel of a car. If you saw me behind the wheel of a car with a bottle of Jameson's, chugging it away, would you be inclined to make a phone call? And everyone goes, hey look, he's vaping. I'll turn this way. People are just kind of numb to it. People are absolutely numb to it. To give you an idea on this thing, who remembers James Taylor, just out of curiosity?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, young kids, go to Smithsonian.com. Back in the early 70s, there's a great amphitheater in West Denver called Red Rocks. I went and saw James Taylor at Red Rocks, and it was a great show. Okay? So we're up there, and we're sitting way back in the cheap seats because we're in college. Who's got money? You have barely enough money to buy a ticket and smooze a beer out of it. So we're sitting up in there. It's like, wow, man, it's great. He sounds great, but I can't see him. Well, the reason we couldn't see him, there was this grayish haze that filled the caldera of the amphitheater. So my wife and I decided this last year we were going to go see James Taylor again. So we're sitting back up in our cheap seats because now we're old and cheap. Okay? Cycle comes full, we're out. And it's like, hey, you know, for an old guy, he's looking pretty good. And I suddenly realized, wait, we can see the stage. This wasn't like last time. So I start watching the crowd. And you'd see blue light, off, blue light, red light, green light, blue. Everybody's vaping. So my attention is attracted to two kids, when I say kids, early 20s, sitting just kind of off to the front of us in the next aisle. These two could not have made this look like a drug deal any more than if they had tried to. You see the one go, you want a hit? Yeah. And they start this looking around type of. So my little spidey senses. So they pull out the vape pen, they're hitting it, and there comes the cloud. I try to get right in behind him so I can smell the cloud. You can't smell anything. Very, very faint. What are the kids using in school when Sister Mary Margaret's up writing geometry on the board? Or that gummy bear. Okay? There's problems with this. Unintended consequences. Okay? When we looked at usage in adults, The next age group we looked at was the young adult, 18 to 25. Hey, guess what? We're higher than the national average again. And not to be outdone, we went from 4th to 3rd nationally. Okay? The kids aren't going to outdo our age brackets. Okay? Next group we looked at, oh, lost it. Let's talk about this then. Here's why usage goes up. If you're going to get harmed doing something, are you going to do it? No. If there's a risk of going to jail, do you want to do it? No. And if it's hard to find, you get distracted and you get bored with it. When we take harm and we take it out of the equation, hey, it's just weed. It's medicine. Oh, I guess it's okay then. And guess what? You're not going to go to jail with it. Oh, God, even better. And look, we've got 12 tons a year of this crap we're growing. When those things come together, when harm goes down, risk goes down, availability goes up, usage is going to go up. It just happens. There's no way around it. Scary thought. On the left, this is America on illegal drugs. This is your brain on illegal drugs. Okay? Each one of the little icons is by millions. Look down here at the bottom. 19 million people, this is from SAMHSA, 19 million people are admitting to being regular marijuana users. That leads the pack over cocaine, crack, meth, heroin. That's leading the pack. When we look at, quote, legal drugs, alcohol, tobacco, the nicotine, look what we got. 136 million folks on alcohol, 69.5 million. What we've just done is we've taken the most popular intoxicant from the illegal side and brought it over here. Does this seem like a good plan? Talk about emergency room data. Because one thing kind of led to another on this thing. So we tried to figure out, what are we seeing in the ERs? Who's got toddlers in this room? Little ones? All the way in the back. How old? Are they twins? 2 and 4. They see it, they touch it. Where does it go? Especially depending on what it looks like. This is just how the little ones explore the world. We get it. This is where we're seeing a lot of the unanticipated, unintended consequences for exposures into ERs. The little ones grab it. We don't treat it well. The whole concept, let's treat it like alcohol. Where do we keep the alcohol in the house? We keep it up high. It's like the guns. Most of us own guns these days, okay? Especially in my house. My kids grew up around guns. Where did I keep them? Keep them up high. Why are we leaving the marijuana cookies and brownies and granola down where they can get their hands on them? Okay? You have to have that same concept of respect. When we looked at the 18 to 20 group for ER admissions, really didn't see anything. Why? This is the group that's smoking something, expecting something to happen. If something goes wrong, they know they can ride it out. Okay? This was the age bracket that caught our attention. It's us, guys. Us. I'm cool. I smoked a few doobies back in high school or college. I'll take a bite of that. I'll take a puff of that. And not realizing these folks that are doing this thinking they remembered what it was like. It's not their grandfather's Buick anymore. Okay? Suddenly, they take a hit on that, they take a bite on that, they take a drink of this, and the heart starts to beat, the head starts to flush up, and it feels like it's going to explode. They're like, I'm having a stroke. This is the big one. And off they go to the ER. We had a couple of people admitted to the ER after the Denver County Fair, after they visited the marijuana exhibition. What happened to quilts and apple pie at the county fair? Best bong water, I guess. I don't know. They ate some free samples that happened to make it out there. Show of hands. Is chocolate a food group? Oh, yeah. Especially the dark stuff. I like the really dark, bitter stuff. So if one free sample is good, what's better? Or 9. So they eat a bunch of this chocolate that was infused with THC. In about an hour, I can't breathe. This isn't good. Off we go to the ER. Okay? Accidental poisoning is essentially what we're talking about. If this shows up on your lunch tray, is there any doubt what you're about to eat? No. Question for you. Are these regular cookies or are they infused cookies? How do you know? How do you know? I'm telling you right now, when they talk about a dosage size of a THC-infused edible cookie being 1/16 of a cookie, has anyone in here ever ate 1/16 of an oatmeal raisin chocolate chip cookie? This is a single serving, and I like the size, proportionate size. This and about a half gallon of milk, Daddy's happy. Okay? Take a look at the screen. Focus on the screen for a second. You're going to have a test. Okay? Name the product. What brands did you see? Twix. Twix are good, by the way. Chocolate, caramel, how do you go wrong? Kit Kats, what else? Butterfingers, yeah. Look again. Oh. Why not go for visual recognition? I had a question asked by the governor's office, the Impaired Driving Council yesterday. So where are the major corporations behind this stuff? And why aren't they raising hell about it? Pick and choose your battles. How many had pixie sticks when you were kids? Remember those? There's a THC-infused product out there that looks like a pixie stick. I hear the mango, by the way, is supposed to be the best. Comes in the long tube. Kids sitting in school, sucking on a pixie stick. There's absolutely no markings on the container. It's on the label that you tear off and throw away. So how's the cop going to know? How's the teacher going to know? How's that school resource officer working? Not going to know. How do you denote how much a dosage unit is? We didn't know these things. These are things that are coming up. Now we're trying to play catch up. We're trying to find the way to fix the car after we bought it. Poison control centers are actually a great source of data for us. What we figured out is that some people are not going to go to the ER because of the stigma of it being weed. So people are going to call in. Now, by way of disclaimer, when you look at that age bracket from the 0 to 5 mark, and you see 268% increase over those two time periods, understand when we're looking at numbers, the lower the numbers and the change, when you look at that percentage of change, it looks high, okay? The actual physical numbers from that 0 to 5 age group are relatively low, but there was a substantial increase from that 6 to 9 to the 10 to 13 period. The kids are still getting into it. The one notation on this, the second highest group, us. I can't breathe, I'm having the heart attack, okay? This was the interesting one, 18 to 25. This year we are 25% increase. Last year we were minus 28%. This is the group that knows, hey, I'm smoking, if I get high, if I'm having a bad moment, it'll pass. Just curl up in the fetal position and watch, MTV or something. It'll go by. This even had an increase. What our concern was is that everyone's got our little smartphones, which are smarter than most of us anyway. A lot of folks are self-diagnosing on the internet. That's a great place, because if it's on the internet, it has to be what? True, exactly. Here's an issue we're running into. Idaho just added 2 counties to the HIDA up in this neck of the woods. First 2 counties in Idaho, so that's a good positive step. Here's one of the problems that we run into. My program oversees the highway interdiction programs, the guys that are chasing down the bad guys on the road for their dope, for human trafficking, money going back to Mexico. Canines are a huge part of this process. In the state of Colorado, if weed is legal now, can we train our dogs to look for weed? But it's still a violation of federal law. So again, the conundrum comes up. How do you have something that's a violation of federal law, clearly, and still be legal over here? How do we resolve that? I don't know. Let's buy the car and we'll figure it out as we go. And that's exactly what's going on. That's where the biggest rift of this thing is coming up. It's a violation of federal laws, a Schedule I drug, but the state says it's okay. Because 1.3 million people said, dude, yes. 2009. These are the number of interdictions seized. These are just the ones we caught across the United States with cars with weed coming out of Colorado headed for someplace else. Best guesstimation, we are probably catching less than 10% of all the cars carrying contraband or illegal traffic into drugs, specifically weed. Less than 10%. The nice thing about weed, I gotta tell you though, having done it once or twice in my lifetime, you walk up to the car, license, registration, proof of insurance, and how much weed you have in the car. Even Helen Keller could make a seizure on weed if she's standing downwind, okay? The potency level is so high that the stink level is even higher, okay? One benefit to it. Here's the map. Again, these are the states most commonly receiving dope coming out of Colorado, heading to their states. Does this look vaguely familiar? Is it a cause and effect? Yep. Here's your eye test. Is this better or this? 1 or 2? Either way, it doesn't translate to a very, shall we say, heavily controlled or regulated industry. This is something we've been dealing with for a couple of years. Why should I drive to Colorado, spend $5,000, $10,000 for a couple pounds of weed? Why can't I go to you in Colorado? We work out an arrangement. I wire you money, or I Bitcoin or Instagram you the money. You take it, you put it into a FedEx box or a US postal box, and you drop it in 2 or 3 different places. And you put a BS name on your side and a BS name on my side, and you send me the tracking number. If it gets intercepted, what are you going to do with it? There's nowhere for it to go. And if it's just a pound of weed or 2 pounds of weed, a lot of folks aren't going to get too excited about it. And the nice thing about that is you send me tracking numbers for 5 packages. Each has 2 pounds in it, okay? I look at tracking number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I see it's going to be at your house at 2:30 in the afternoon. Are you home at 2:30 in the afternoon? But I'll be at your place because I'm waiting for Mr. FedEx to pull up, walk up to the door, because I'm not asking for a signature on the package, am I? Just throw it on the doorstep. You drive away. I then sneak up, I grab the package off, and away we go. Then I go to your house, and your house, and your house, and your house, and that's how we get it. And it's all BS names. It's cheaper, it's safer, less risk for the drug traffickers. And what do you do when you actually make it home and beat them to the punch and open up your package? And you, honey, did you order anything from Colorado? Here's some of the ideas of what we're seizing out of Colorado itself. 2009, when U.S. Postal Service started tracking this, they call it PMN, Prohibited Mailing Narcotics. 2009, they started, 2010, 11, and look what we've done. They're getting better as they're going along. They're the only agency out there that's really taking a proactive step on this. Got a question a couple months back. Well, what about FedEx and UPS? Well, why aren't they in the middle of this? What are FedEx and UPS's mission in life? Get the package from A to B and make a profit, right? It's business. Why does GM make cars? Profit. Why is large-scale pharma in business? Profit. If this is such a great medicinal quality drug, wouldn't you think large-scale pharma would have been on this a long, long, long time ago? The longer you wait, the more profit you miss out on. But this is the only Schedule I drug being administered as medicine that's never really undergone a formal, proper clinical trial. Not sure it's working, okay? We look at the number of pounds the stuff that's being seized, and again, this is just the ones they're catching. Number of states we're impacting from Colorado. This makes you feel good about yourself. Here's the states where we're sending packages to and they're getting intercepted. Once again, is a cause and effect. The dark green states are the heaviest draw of packages from Colorado weed because they're getting the most money for it. The light tan ones are secondary layers. Here's the breakdown. 15 or more parcels of the dark green ones. We're losing a lot of dope here. When we talk about the potency levels of dope, we talked about having THC levels of 20, 25, 28, 30+% in potency. And then along comes the idea of, here, hold my beer and get the video camera. I've got an idea how we get more THC out of this stuff. The term became BHO, butane hash oil extraction systems, okay? We're now just calling them simply just THC extraction because they're not always using butane. What is butane, guys? What is it used for?
Lighter.
It's lighter fluid. Why is it called lighter fluid? Because it's highly combustible. It works really well in that role, okay? This is kind of a Darwinism moment. This is a Darwinism moment. What we were running into is we had houses exploding for no apparent reason. We had people getting injured in explosions and flash fires for no apparent reason in a house till we started looking into it. And what we realized is that it was an awareness situation that first responders, the cops didn't know what they were looking for, and the evidence destruction squads, we call them firefighters, they get in there with their hoses and axes, and they just tear hell out of the place. By the time you get on the scene, you really don't know what you're looking at. Well, since we started spooling up some training for these guys, all of a sudden the reported incidents, these type of explosions have increased, and they're becoming more and more popular, especially during the winter months, because when it's nice out, you do it outside. So here's your homework assignment for tonight. When we're done here, we're gonna make some hash oil, okay? So first thing you need to do, hook up with your local dealer, get some good weed. Some really dank stuff, something sticky and kind of really got good stink to it, all right? Then you're gonna go down to the Home Depot, or you can order this on eBay by the pallet and case load. Get yourself some butane oil to go with. It used to be you had to use make your own PVC or glass tube. You can now order the high quality metal tubes online, okay? Things you can't do on the internet, it's wonderful. Get some hose clamps if you're going to go the ghetto route with the PVC or glass tubing. You got to have some coffee filters. Got to have coffee filters. It's essential. And then you got to steal your wife or your mom's Pyrex dish. So here's how this works. We take that weed and we grind it up really, really fine, and we pack that column as quick as we can. At the top of the column where our friend's sitting there, he takes his butane, he puts it through a little hole, and that's what he's going to inject the butane in. Now, here's an OSHA moment. Butane, when you do it this way, is really, really cold. Notice the safety precautions he's using with his left hand. Dude, it's okay. I saw this on YouTube. I can handle this. So our friend has got his tube packed. He's got the bottom capped off with a hose clamp. Okay, nothing but the finest USP surgical grade material. He's going to inject that butane down through the plant material. What's essentially happening here, kids, is that the butane serves as a volatile solvent, and it's extracting the THC from the plant material. The THC is infused with the butane fluid, and what comes out the other end is liquid butane infused with THC. So you catch that in your little bowl. And you can pass this through a couple of times. You're not just going to use one tube, but this is what you're trying to get at the end. It's this little kind of pea green looking clear soup. And all that soup is, once again, liquid butane and THC. Color question. What is dope trafficking about? What color? Green. In a perfect world, if I took that tube and I extracted THC to a point where it's almost running out clear, should I then not discard that plant material? Would it be fair to sell it to you at a premium cost if I've extracted most of the THC out of it? See, I like you guys. You're about 2 steps ahead. This works out. Yeah, there's no quality assurance here. They'll take it, they'll mix it back up, and you're buying stuff that's already had THC extracted, and you're paying top dollar for it. Now, Darwin time. Who likes to cook in here? Good. Bain Marie, a water bath, right? This is where are you kidding me moment comes in. We know that butane is a volatile solvent. We know that it catches on fire. We know this stuff explodes. So what's the logical thing to do? Let's introduce it to a heat source. So our rocket scientist here, member of the von Braun family, takes a pan of water, uses a highly technical instrument that he got probably from eBay, cranks it up to, it's about a medium high, that works, and then takes this liquid bomb and puts it down into that hot water bath. Liquid butane does not like heat. It boils like you have never seen. This stuff is white hot and it's mad. As it's boiling, what's it actually doing? It's venting off gas. Okay? This is just all we're doing here, guys. We're making a sauce. This is a reduction. All this is a sauce reduction. Okay? So you want to get it down to where it's kind of this green caramely looking stuff. Once you're done with that, you extract it down as far as you can. You can put it in a microwave to dry it out. This guy's using a dehydrator like you're going to make jerky out of. Okay? And the concept being is that if you take all of the moisture out of, then you're left with shatter. If you leave it kind of gummy and sticky, you're left with earwax. Bottom line being, it's still about 80% potency. Highly addictive, highly flammable, easy delivery system, quick reward. It's got all the perfect combinations. What folks don't understand is this, 230 to 1. If I have 1 gallon of liquid butane, and I open up my 1 gallon of liquid butane in this room, and I let it go to vapor, it's going to essentially become 230 vaporous gallons of butane. Which means when you come into the room and you turn on the light, what happens behind that light switch? What always happens? There's a spark. If I have my bare feet and I walk across your shag rug and I come up and touch you on the nose, what's going to happen? Which always works good with the kids. I mean the dog. Lucifer and Beelzebub never cared for that one. Okay? That little spark is simply enough to have it go off. Part of the process, they'll take this and put it up into a freezer to try and chill it down to make it cool faster. Inside the freezer, there's a motor and a fan. When that motor and fan kicks on, what happens? Spark. We couldn't figure out why people's freezers were blowing up. Then we figured out why. They were making hash oil, okay? Here's one of our local guys in Denver who walked in, self-admitted to an ER, said, well, what happened to you? I got burned. Yeah, we see that. It's either that or you're a lizard and you're shedding. I was making hash oil in my kitchen and it blew up. All right, so it flashed, and it flashed pretty good on him. That's his lower legs. There's his arms. Here's a test question for you. Take a look at his hand. Everything's pretty much crispy critters except for his palm right here. Why? Anybody know why?
The color.
Nope, not the tube. What was it?
Freezing cold.
Nope.
He had a beer.
Now see, I like your style. He had a beer in his hand. You and I need to cook a little bit. What do we put into that hot liquid? We take that bowl that we collected the butane and we put it down in there. That's where he was holding the bowl. It flashed so hot and so fast that it scorched everything around him. Now, people can be trained. Stupid human pet tricks, right? As he's laying in the ER talking with our folks and facing some pretty substantial skin grafts, quote, and I'll clean it up by one word, "This is the stupidest thing I have ever done." So you see, people can be taught. This is not a good thing to try and do. Unfortunately, a little late for this guy. Little late for this guy. One of the issues we run into, if it's illegal under 64 to make oil concentrates at your house, how can we charge him with hash? Well, what do we do with him? Well, I guess we could we could charge him with arson. It's his house. Okay, did he endanger the dog? I mean, grasping at answers, grasping at straws. Again, all of these have unintended consequences that nobody thought about when we passed this stuff. So, by way of summary, and then we'll get Ron up here, is understand that we have issues with the Cole and the Ogden memo. We're already in violation of so many of the points on that last memo from Cole. You know, we're losing it out of state. It is getting to kids. It is being used in schools. I mean, bad stuff's taking place on it. If you're going to start looking at data collection up here, and I understand your governor has a pretty strong stance on this, as I understand, in Idaho, that not going to fly in this state. Is that accurate?
Yes.
God bless him, okay? If you get stuck looking at data, understand the historical data is easy to track down. And with the reports we've got, we've already done half your work for you. The biggest thing you run into is you don't know what you don't know. And again, every time you turn over a rock, there's going to be something else to take a look at, unfortunately. And the last thing, this is the key right here. Networking, sharing information, sharing partnerships, getting the truth out. Getting the truth out. We found that the pro side, when they passed Amendment 64, for every $1 of no, let's keep it illegal and regulate it side came out, they were answering with $10, $12. There's a lot of money behind this. We couldn't argue the points effectively with them. We didn't have the data. We didn't have the truth. When someone from the pro side says, since the legalization of marijuana, teenage suicide's gone down. It's like, wow, that's kind of a brash statement. And when you looked at the statement at face value for that year, teenage suicides were down. What are they not saying? Because of the legalization of marijuana, teenage suicides are down, okay? We can twist words, we can twist phrases, the same way we can twist stats, okay? When you look at statistics, when you look at numbers, take a look at the source of those things. Is it coming from SANSA? Is it coming from NIDA? Is it coming from a valid study that has a very broad spectrum? Or when you read the CICE story on that study and it says, this is from 3 guys at the Hampton Inn in Boise, Idaho over a long weekend on 4th of July, maybe this isn't a really good scientific study to be looking at, okay? So again, data collection, sharing the information, that's the key. By getting the truth out, by knowing what is, you know what isn't. Here's saving your homework. If you want a copy of these reports, if you go to our website, plug in www.rmhida.org. Upper right-hand corner, you'll see a tab that says reports. You'll find 3 there. You'll find the blue one, which is the most recent one. The first one is in white. And you'll find that one little tidbit that we pushed out there, that are we a source state? And the question was, are regulations working? And unfortunately, they weren't. Okay? Make sense?
Yes.
All right.